Welcome to the Inside Line IndyCar podcast by the Indy Star, and welcome to the 2026 season. I am Assistant Sports Editor Aaron Ferguson. Happy to introduce our new motorsports reporter, Zion Brown. Couple weeks on the job here.
Week 3.
It's amazing. And what a few weeks it's been. You kind of got the slow roll, got through all the IT stuff, and then boots on the ground, you're making your way around the paddock, and I guess let's start off with getting to know you a little bit. Just obviously, you just graduated from IU here, I don't know, in May, I think it was.
What is that now, 8 months ago? Yeah.
So take me through what led you to IU and just kind of your journalism experience that has led you here to the Indy Star.
So, I'm from here in Indianapolis, West Side, went to Ben Davis, and while I was in high school, I started doing some broadcast work, started on the radio side, transitioned to a little bit of TV work, and then by my senior year, which was a weird year, being in and out of school in 2020, 2021, I started to do some writing there, and like you said, I went to IU and just kind of did a lot of the same stuff, right, just at a higher level, at a more frequent pace as well. And so I spent 4 years doing that. My junior year of college, I interned here at the Star, mainly covering IU, but then also assisting just on any other beats that may have needed the help at the time, like the motorsports beat, right, being there in May, and then going back in July of 2024 for the Brickyard. So I helped out there. So I have experience, obviously, know a lot of the people here. And then, like you said, graduated last year, 2025 in the spring. And now I'm here and ready to get going. Like I said, week 3, it's been good that I got to start, when I did, right? I know we had questions about that going in, but as I was at the content days over the last couple of days, which we're about to talk about, I was just talking to everybody and I'm so glad that I started now and not like 2 weeks from now when it's mid-February and the season's about to start. I'm like, I don't know anybody. So it's been a good time to start, especially as teams are getting back here into their shops in Indy and really focusing on gearing up and getting their cars at the level they need them to go out to testing and to start the season.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stuck out as we're going through the process on our end of hiring the reporters, just how versatile you are. And I think one of the things that we do so well, especially on the motorsports beat, but particularly with IndyCar in the month of May, is we do Pit Pass Live, which each day is a different feature of all of the things that are happening at the track. We do our live show the morning of the 500, and you have an extensive TV background, or at least maybe I should say video and multimedia, that really stood out. Why did that kind of interest you early on when you were starting your journalism career, and how have you seen yourself grow through that?
I think it was just the age that I was kind of starting to work in journalism and in media, right? It was becoming apparent, late 2010s, early 2020s, that was an important part for anybody, no matter what you wanted to do, what you're necessarily maybe even best at, is that you're going to have to be on video here and there. You're going to have to be on air, whether it's live or pre-recorded or whatnot. And so I just made sure I knew how to do those things and all these different things. And I think it's really helped me throughout my career. And like I said, I did start in radio, which I think is always a good way to start if you want to get comfortable being on air, because radio is live. I know a lot of people who have to do 7-8 takes of anything they do because they're not used to being live all the time. But because I started first doing radio, I'm used to being live. I usually don't need, a bunch of different takes to get something done. And so that's something I've really gotten accustomed to and have been able to do quite well.
We need to transfer that to your writing too. No, your writing's been great. I think, it's such a different experience from you growing up to me. Like, I was a very casual observer of the 500, and growing up in Cleveland when they raced at Burke Airport on the lakefront, I would tune into that because it was the talk of town. But I never really followed the sport as much as someone who has the whole month of May to experience. So I guess two-pronged question. One, could you hear the cars on track since you grew up on the west side when they were here? And two, what is like your memory of IndyCar and in motorsports growing up versus now you're working in it?
To answer the first question, yes. Like all the time, it would just be like, oh, they're on the track right now. Like, and obviously some days for whatever reason you would hear it more than others, just depending, I guess, probably on the rest of traffic, right? Depending on how many cars were on the road, also. But yes, all the time you could hear those cars zooming around the track. And then the second part of it, it was just what was my experience with the month of May, or just in general.
Just in general, yeah.
I mean, for me, once again, I'll go back to radio. Living here, you can't watch the race. So if I wasn't going, I went a handful of times growing up, but if I wasn't going, getting to listen to it on radio, hear all the guys at each turn doing their thing on the radio has been something that is the way I've experienced it, between reading about the race and listening on the radio. And then, of course, eventually being able to watch the 500 afterwards, after it's already happened and no longer a live broadcast. But so my experience with it is not of always necessarily seeing it up front, but hearing it and just getting to understand how it works.
And I think one of the big things about the STARS internship program is it really kicks off with the 500 in the month of May and practice and qualifying. And that was fun for me, as I got to work with our intern and now one of our high school writers, Josh Haran. Through that was like we were both experiencing it for the first time. And so you've already experienced that as one of our interns, turned part-timer, now turned beat writer. So I guess now that you've experienced it from like the business side, what is kind of like your hope and your plan for moving forward and covering this beat?
I will say I'm glad I have done it once, and obviously it wasn't in this role, in the role that Nathan Brown was in, where he was really in it, all the time. But going back a couple of summers ago, or a couple of springs ago, technically, me and Kyle Smedley, who's now at the South Bend Tribune, me and him just running around to the medical center whenever there was a crash, and going with Clark as well, who would record the videos of the interviews we would do, the little 5 minutes it is that you get with the driver after they wreck, doing that, and then just being able to go run around the pits and try to talk to who you need to talk to for whatever your story is that day. It gave me that experience to know, okay, I know where everything's at. I understand, at least to a small extent, the flow of how everything goes and how you can set up talking to different people to set up your stories. And so I'm glad I've gotten that. It's definitely a lot different than when you just go to the race and you're just like having a good time. I'm sitting in the infield and just having a good time and watching the cars go around. You're kind of trying to make sure you understand everything that's going on around the track so that you can really give the audience the best stories possible.
Yeah, I think we're, 4 weeks now to St. Pete almost?
Yeah.
We're closing in on that, practice and qualifying. And so
yesterday, one of the team's PR people, she came up to me, she introduced herself to me, and then she pointed out to me that as of yesterday, we were a month away from St. Pete qualification. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's a scary thought. But yeah, we are right around the corner from it.
We're almost traveling as fast as an IndyCar.
Almost.
I know you've been making your way around the paddock. I've joined you on a couple of those meetups, which has been fun. But really, the past 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, were the big kickoff, the IndyCar content days, where you got to meet all the drivers and Fox personnel and different people. You met reporters for the first time who cover the sport. What was kind of your just biggest takeaway, biggest overview from the past 2 days?
I think my biggest takeaway with it is just about how everybody is trying to, at the very least, close the gap. And I know I talked about this with you, and we'll have more on it, but close the gap between Alex Palou and the rest of the field, right? That is the story going into this year. He had obviously already won 3 titles going into last year, but last year was an insanely dominant year, right? Winning 8 races, podium on 13 of the 17 races. And everybody kind of came into that. Even a guy like Scott Dixon, who's on Chip Ganassi Racing with Alex Palou, was like, I want to be at the top again. And we have to find a way to not let the same guy win nearly half of the races, right? And so that's going to be such a big story and something that'll be so interesting going into this year. And and everybody seems to like him. Like, I don't think it's not personal with any of the drivers, but they're like, hey, this is not how this sport as a whole is supposed to work, where one guy is winning as much as he won. So that'll be very interesting to see going into the year.
Yeah, I think I speak for myself, but I think a lot of people who do want to work in sports have some sort of competitive background and competitive nature. So I can totally understand where it's like Alex, I very much believe everyone thinks Alex is a great guy.
Yeah.
But they want to beat him. Like, you're in this to win.
Right.
And so I totally get that. But it was kind of funny to hear the past couple of days just like how people are approaching it and like how they're motivated. I think Pato had a great quote of like, how Pelot just always improves, and it's like if he improves upon last year, like what are we even gonna do anymore?
There were one or two guys who wouldn't even say his name. They were like, "There's one guy who just kept winning last year that didn't even say his name." I thought that was funny.
Is that good or bad for Pelot that they wouldn't say his name?
I think it's good. For me, I feel like that's a good ego boost. Like I'm like the boogeyman, right? Like if I was in his position, that's how I'd feel about it.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger storylines, maybe even bigger than that, really, is Will Power, a new team for the first time, going over to Andretti Global, and this was really his first, or I guess his most public-facing opportunity,
Right.
since he couldn't start till January 1. I remember he, at 1 a.m. Eastern Time,
Yeah.
posted a video of him running in his new Andretti gear to kind of poke fun at that, but it's all business, and we have a story online at IndyStar.com about just kind of how he has approached the first month and tried to approach it leading up to the first month of his job. But what was your biggest takeaway from just Will Power, the move, and I guess, yeah.
I would say that my biggest takeaway is that he is trying his absolute hardest to make sure that he's going to be ready for March 1st. And the fact that he couldn't start until January 1st, right? He has exactly 2 months to figure it out. Is definitely going to be a challenge, and I wouldn't be surprised if he started slow because of that. But he wants to not start slow, obviously, and he's doing all that he can. I put in that story, he talked to Colton Herta quite a bit, whose car he's taken over. He also talked to Brian Herta, Colton's dad, just about the car and the Andretti car. He's going to a big shift now, too, driving a Honda now instead of a Chevy, so that'll be something to watch for him for the first time in several years. But yeah, he's just trying his best to really get integrated with Andretti. I know he was at the Rolex 24 in Daytona, but he had that week or so there. But he's been trying his best to get into the shop, get to know everybody, and really get boots on the ground, get going here. And so it'll be very fun to watch just how he can do these first few weeks, let's say the first 3 races, right? Those back-to-back-to-back races that we have to start the season, to see if Will Power can still be up, at or in the podium for those races, or if it'll maybe take a little longer for him to really get into form because he just hasn't had that much time to prepare for it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stuck out as I was reading her story is just like Will Power is like a forward-facing figure. Is just like, I don't know. I think he's just great to listen to and watch because you just don't really know what's going to happen. He can be very boisterous. He can be very fun, very funny. But one of the things was he's very technical. And, we all remember the plower move from Detroit last year with Kyle Kirkwood, which is now his teammate. How do you think his teammates are kind of approaching this or helping him or handling this?
Yeah, between Kirkwood and Erickson, neither of them are, super young, right? They both have a good amount of experience, but they don't have as much as Will Power. So I got the sense that they both are really trying to take in what they can from Will Power, a guy who, has won a 500 and who has won the series multiple times. So I think they're really trying to soak everything in they can from him, right? And that's no offense or anything to Colton Herta, but he's not as old and not as experienced as Will Power is. So I think these guys are taking it as an opportunity, like, hey, the second oldest guy in the series is my teammate now. Let me see what knowledge I can gain and kind of harness from him to go forward.
I think another big storyline facing this year is that there's going to be an independent officiating board that IndyCar kind of put into place, but they want it to be separate because of some of the conflicts of interest with Roger Penske and owning the series and a team. And this is something that people really wanted to just to like have that point of differentiation and try to create that barrier. And I know you're writing about it still, and we'll have plenty more building up to the season. So subscribe to IndyStar. There's my not so shameless plug. But it was such a big talking point the past 2 days. Just what is your sense for what this is, or how drivers are feeling about it?
I get the sense that a lot of them don't really know much about it and aren't quite sure what to expect. It was funny when I asked Pato O'Ward about it. He was like, it's good that, these people aren't being paid by Penske or by IndyCar. And Dave First, the head of PR for IndyCar, is off to the side. He's like, they are. And he's like, oh, then I don't know. He basically admitted that he did not know as much as he thought. So everybody's just still figuring it out. They're still having to hire their managing director. They have not announced that yet. So we don't know what that'll look like. But it is independent just as far as being a part of Penske or being a part of IndyCar. It is independent in that mold. And so we'll see if that makes much of a difference. Of course, you had your controversies both in the 500 and kind of leading up to it as well last year. So that's something that, hopefully we won't see again, or hopefully if it does happen again, it's not something where IndyCar is the one where it's at fault, where it is the drivers or the teams that are actually at fault for that. And that's not to say that IndyCar was at fault last year, right? It's up to everybody's own individual opinion, but I think people just want this board to be independent and want it to feel like it is fair and honest. And there was cautious optimism. I think the best quote I got was from Graham Rahal, who basically was just like, "Look, I didn't have that much of a problem with how it was already, and I think some people that did just maybe need to take accountability for what happened, for what mistakes or what penalties they may have committed." So we'll see how it goes this year. I think everybody's hoping that it is not that big of a story once the season actually begins. But as of right now, it is kind of just lingering like, hey, how will this work? What impact will it have on the series?
Yeah, I think that's a great rundown. And I think we're also curious to learn more about it as they kind of fill out the staff and we get into the season and see what this actually looks like. I didn't put this on our rundown, so I'm sorry in advance. But I do think we probably should address a couple of other things. Like, obviously, David Malukas is backfilling power seat, and there's some different moves on the grid. We're not going to get into all of them, but there is a lot of speculation and rumors about, well, Dale Coyne hasn't filled his second seat, but also Prema, and not knowing what their future is in the sport. Everything that I've been told before you got here, and the messaging has been consistent even after, is that their intention is to race, but the drivers weren't there. And so what did you learn over the past 2 days or the past couple of weeks just about what may be going on with Prema?
I think everybody's been kind of left in the dark, but like you said, it's only week 3, but 2 weeks ago it felt pretty optimistic that they'd be able to kind of string things together. The last, let's say, 10 days have kind of simmered that optimism, right? You have Ryan Briscoe, who was with the team last year, working as a consultant and an advisor, leaving now for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. Not a great sign. Of course, you had the Rawson family leave completely a few weeks ago per motorsports.com. Not a great sign. You have all these things coming together, and then, of course, the fact that neither Callum Eilert or Robert Schwartzman were here in Indy this week for these content days, whereas every other full-time driver that's been announced was there, right? The only 3 that weren't there were those 2, and whoever in the world is going to be driving that second car for Dale Coyne. So these are just not positive signs. It doesn't seem to be going in the right direction, and they may or may not race this year. They may or may not have two actual cars to race this year, but it seems like the chances of them racing at St. Pete are extremely low as of right now. And so, once again, we're not completely sure what's going on there, but it doesn't seem like this team is ready to do a full 17-race season with both of their cars as of right now, just a little over a month away. Yeah,
and you talk about Powers, like, feeling like he's got a big learning curve starting 2 months before the race, and now we're talking about it's 4 weeks out. And I know Eilert talked at Daytona, like, he thinks they're going to race, but probably not at St. Pete.
Exactly. He was asked if he would be at St. Pete, and he gave a funny answer. He was like, I will be there. And then they asked him, will he be in a car? And he's like, I don't know.
Well, we'll see. Obviously, there's plenty more to come from that and other storylines. What would you say, maybe not biggest takeaway, but like, what was your most memorable moment from Content Days? Something that, it doesn't have to be like anything official. It could have just been like, oh, this was a fun moment or something that was funny.
I'm trying to think. Watching, this is so stupid, and I think it's stupid. Watching Alex Palou, who is 28 years old, make 6-7 jokes in the hallway was like, why? I don't know why that stuck with me. I was just like, this is the most accomplished driver over the last 5 years, and he's older than I am, but he's still childish, right, as anybody. I thought that was funny. And then just, those general interactions where I'm just running to people in the hallways, and, there's the formal press conference, but then there's, every now and then you'll just run to somebody, have a quick 2 or 3 minute conversation with the driver or with somebody else and get to know them. So that was what's most memorable to me. I know IndyCar is full of a lot of those interactions, and so that's kind of what I took away from those couple of days.
Yeah, well, this has been great. I think Yeah, man, we're 4 weeks out from St. Pete. I've got a GP of Arlington countdown timer on my desk here at the office, and it said 44 plus days. A few hours added on to that. So, like, it's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah.
Zion, where can people find you if they want to follow you and follow your work?
Well, I'll start with, if you want to reach out to me, story ideas, whatever, email zbrown at usatoday.co.com. I got to get that right. You can find me there. I'm on Twitter. I think I will soon be starting a Blue Sky account. Tony East reached out to me, who writes about the Pacers, and somebody had reached out to him on Blue Sky and said, we need more motorsports reporters on Blue Sky. I haven't made it yet, but look out for that in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, go ahead, go to indystar.com/sports/motor-sports, and it'll be full of stories I've written and I'm going to write about content days, and I'm so excited to get to work and to really get going now, just a little over a month away from St. Pete.
Yeah, you can also find us, like you said, at indystar.com, but you can find our newsletter. It is on the tagline of every one of Zion's stories, because I put it there. If he doesn't, you can get all of his latest work there. Subscribe to our YouTube page. There's going to be plenty of videos as we ramp that up this year. Wherever you find podcasts, be sure to subscribe to the Inside Line podcast. We have a few tricks up our sleeve this year, so you'll have to stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, any last words?
I think one more thing I want to cover, I think the Rookie of the Year race is going to be quite interesting. I know we didn't talk much about, Mick Schumacher right now, but you've got him coming in, racing his first IndyCar season. You got Dennis Hogger, who, in a similar way to the way Alex Palou dominated the IndyCar series, Dennis Hogger, in just 1 year, his 1 year in Indy Next last year was dominant. Mm-hmm. And then Kyle Collette, who came second to Hogger in that race last year in Indy Next. So you got those three guys, and, because we know Kyle kind of was a little behind Dennis last year, maybe you say, okay, it might be a two-man race, but I wouldn't necessarily count him completely out. And so for me, I'm really excited to see, which of those three guys really has the best first year in IndyCar.
And Mick Schumacher has a lot of experience, too, driving at a very high level. So kind of a different balance than having – he's not your typical rookie. How about –
Exactly.
I'll just cut it at that, because I think that probably best explains it.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. I know – you're going to continue making your way around the paddock, and I will try to join you as much as possible. I know McLaren is opening up its new shop here next week, and or this week, depending on when you catch our episode here. But yeah, I've got plenty to keep you busy if you need any help. So, and I think the paddock will enjoy getting to know you and catching up with you, and I hope IndyCar fans do as well. And so, thanks for coming into the office after 2 very early and long days. Gave you a little bit of a break and said lunchtime. So, thanks for coming in, being a part of the show. This is really your show. I'm just here to be the one asking the questions. And special shout out to Clark Wade, our producer behind the camera, and who makes us look good in most everything we do. We'll see you guys at St. Pete, if not sooner. Again, catch us at indystar.com. Subscribe to the IndyStar YouTube page. Subscribe to the Inside Line IndyStar podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, have a great day.